junior recruiter. You know that.
It was always an issue. It was always an issue because from the very, very, very beginning, the full desk recruiter, which if you're not from a staffing firm or haven't been in a staffing firm, may need to explain a little bit. A full desk recruiter in a search firm is someone who gets paid a commission on the placement, and they have to go and find the client to put people into, and they have to go and find the candidate to put people into the client, and they get paid essentially a bonus fee on first year's salary.
Did you ever do that role before you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I didn't know that's where you came from. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
And so in that setting, the most valuable role is the role of getting the business, sales, developing the clients and maintaining those client relationships, because that's who pays the bills in that setting, right? The employer is paying the bills. So anything candidate side is considered inferior to sales. And within the candidate side, the recruiting side, identifying people or finding people was a subset of that. So it's a subset of a subset. So it was always looked upon as a necessary task, but not necessarily a high value task. It wasn't until it got really hard to find people that it became a high value task. And what people fail to realize is that sourcing, or the candidate identification side of things, is actually a full-time job. It's not a part of the other job. When that happened, it became two parallel disciplines. Just like in marketing, you have people who do sales intelligence and people who do marketing intelligence. You have business development, you have sales, you have account executives, you have, in every job that's matured, you have these divisions of specialization.
And those two roles require really different skill set and being really good at sales and getting the selling, getting the person excited about the company versus the curiosity and the detail.
Exactly. So sourcing was a specialization. And it just kind of, because it started out as a subset of a subset, it sort of stayed in that camp where people thought, oh, it's an entry-level job to become a recruiter. You first become a sourcer, then a recruiter. But that's really not actually the case. The best sourcers are the ones that have already been recruiters. Now, you can be a sourcer without ever having been a recruiter. Absolutely. Excuse me. But if you were to look at it as a career progression, you could start out either way. You could become a recruiting coordinator that became a recruiter that became a sourcer, or you can become a sourcer that became a recruiting coordinator. It doesn't really matter. The function isn't the job. What distinguished sourcing as a role or as a function is the ability to identify people. And after that, it also became the ability to engage or get them to respond, because identification alone wasn't enough, which is where there was some overlap with employment branding, because employment branding usually owned social media or advertising or marketing or recruitment marketing or recruitment branding or whatever. And so there was some overlap there. Some sourcers came through social media into recruiting, but it is definitely a specialization. Yeah, it started out as a subjugated role, grew into a discipline, and some people still think it's a subjugated role.
When do you think a company, say they're not massive, they've got a couple of recruiters, when do you think they need to hire their first sourcer or think about that?
If it's a formula, a formula. If productivity gets to the point where a single recruiter is easily producing $3 to $4 million in salary offers. In other words, if you add up all of the salaries of everybody that person hired, and that adds up to $3 to $4 million, you're starting to get to the point where you probably could use a sourcer. Where you actually need one is at about $6 million. After that, it becomes very, very difficult to go from there to beyond that. To get to 8, 10 million in salary offers, you really need to have a sourcer. But it starts becoming a need at about 6 million. The thing is, a lot of recruiting organizations don't really get to 3 million. They kind of get stuck before that. So they think they need sourcing. They bring in a sourcer when they don't really need one. And they treat the sourcer like a junior person, and they give the sourcer, menial labor tasks. And then they say, you're responsible for hires, which is what the recruiter is responsible for. And in any profession, it doesn't matter what profession, if you make two people responsible for the same outcome, neither of them does it.
Interesting. Let's say they have this recruiter that's capped out. Why would they not hire another recruiter versus a sourcer? How do they know which to?
That's you may be better off hiring another recruiter if both of them have the capability, capacity of the interest, the wherewithal to do the sourcing that's needed. But if they don't want to do it, then you're asking them to do something they really don't want to do. Or if they're not very good at it, you have to train them. So either they're good at it, they want to do it, or you can train them to do that themselves. Then you would, yes, have a recruiter that can source, and then you'd hire another recruiter that can source. You wouldn't need a dedicated sourcer until you got, again, to that 6 million.
So it's not about how specialized and complicated the roles are necessarily at your company. Oh, interesting.
The economics of it actually does all the heavy lifting for you. Because we already have a formula for, I mean, I hate to say this because it's one of the things that as an economist, you put your economy hat or your economist hat on, and it kind of like turns people into numbers, and I don't like that. Finance sometimes does that as well, turns people into numbers, and it sort of divorces the human from human resources. But if you really kind of look at it in an abstract way like that, where economy is the rule, then we already have an economic way to prove the value of a human life. It sucks to say it like that, but it's true. Some people are worth more than others because they get paid more than others. And I'm not saying that they're a more worthy person. I'm just saying that there's a reason why an insurance policy for a CEO is, pays out $50 million, whereas an insurance policy for little old me pays out $50,000. So my total net benefit barely is going to cover my funeral expense. But if I was Jeff Bezos, it's going to cover a little bit more than that. So is Jeff Bezos a more valuable person than me? I'm not going to judge that, but economy already did that. So the numbers say that when we pay someone a particular amount of money, they're worth whatever that amount of money is. So if you already have salaries for your employees, you don't need to calculate any other value. That is the monetary value assigned to that employee. So if you added that up, you have a number that you can use reliably. It doesn't matter whether they're a nurse, a janitor, or a CEO. It's the salary that you're actually using as the calculator, not the number of hires. The number of hires is the absolute worst number you could ever use.
I think a lot of companies do use that.
It's horrible. It is the worst thing you could ever do. Because if I wanted to go by number of hires, then the best recruiters in the world are retail recruiters that hire 500 people a year, and they hire somebody for the same job 5, 6, 7, 8 times a year. The same position is filled 5 times a year. They would be the best recruiters ever because they're hiring so many numbers of people. And by that contrast, executive search recruiters that hire 2 or 3 people a year would be the worst recruiters. So you can't tell me that measures, but let's do the math this way. One recruiter hires 3 CEOs whose annual salaries add up to $12 million. And another recruiter hires 3 nurses whose annual salaries add up to $120,000. Now you have a measure. That's why nurse recruiters hire 300 people. So you don't need to look at the number of hires, just the math.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Sorry to be so clinical, but I mean, that's not how I feel. It's just the numbers.
Yeah. So what are you happy with pay transparency now? The job descriptions have that range, assuming the range is reasonable. Because I think some companies are struggling with how large the range is.
Yeah. Here's my problem with pay transparency. And I think pay transparency is a beneficial factor if it is executed correctly. The problem is that you can, what's the word I'm looking? You can fake the numbers so many different ways that pay transparency is just another piece of noise and it doesn't have any meaning. If you are required as an employer to have pay transparency in some states but not others, it kind of starts to make things a little weird, right? Because you might say, in Colorado, this job is worth this much. But if you live in, now you're adding this kind of economic differentiator to the pay transparency. And so what ends up happening is people just use bands.
Right.
And bands are,
sometimes $100,000 difference. Like,
yeah, exactly. So if the band pay transparency posted band on the job posting says 100 to 150,000. That doesn't seem like a very big band, but it's still a pretty wide difference. Every person that applies is automatically going to assume that they're going to get 150.
Or go for it and be pissed if they don't.
And they get, exactly. So now it's creating problems. Now, if you were to say this job pays 128,673 and 43 cents, well, that would be a little bit more accurate and that would be more useful. But then that's very different in Colorado than in California. So now you've got to have a different salary, right? Bands are bad. I mean, bands are good for equity because you need that. But when you're publishing it, a band doesn't really communicate anything.
Yeah.
If you had pay transparency state by state and it was calculated for the economy of that state, then you would need to apply purchasing power parity across dollars in every state, in every city. You would need to add a 7% surcharge in cities that have city tax, take that surcharge out in cities that don't, right? So in Florida, with no tax, this pays 120, but in Boston with tax, pays 100. Now you have something that's useful because I can actually use that to determine what jobs I might want to apply for. But here's the other problem. It doesn't really matter.
Does it not matter?
I don't think so.
Like what the job pays?
Yeah. Does it really matter? Do you want this job or not?
It depends on the person, I think. It depends
right.
on...
So it's not the only factor. So if people are applying for a job just because of the number, that's not a very good reason to work there.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make that number some other way.
Yeah.
Some of them not legal.
Yeah.
So really, is it really that big of a deal? People make a lot more of a deal out of it than it really is. I don't know about you, but in my career have taken 3 pay cuts. I have gone from one job to another where that job that I went to paid less. And I'm saying considerably less.
I did that one time and I was really happy with my
Why would you do that? Because you were exactly. So just tell me what it pays and I make the determination whether or not I want to apply. So pay transparency can be good that way. If we both start playing games, and what happens is, for some reason, I don't know why, people are being coached not to disclose their pay. Well, legally, we're not allowed to ask in some states.
Right.
Okay, fine. So I'm not allowed to ask, but I can ask how much you want to be making.
Right.
What's your expectation? So that we can align on bands. So if I tell you we're expecting to pay somebody $150,000 and you tell me you're expecting to be making about $150,000, then we're good. We can negotiate. But if I tell you it's $100,000 to $200,000 and you tell me it's $500,000 to $700,000, we're not going to be aligned. So, it can add to the conversation if it's
early on
as a piece of information early on. But
it drives me crazy when it's like the 4th conversation. I just wouldn't have that because we're wasting everyone's time.
It's too late by then.
Yeah.
It's too late. Do you want the job or not? I mean, if you want the job, the money should work. And the company should, be able to move things around and make it happen.
Yeah, if they want you.
If they want you, I've never accepted an offer without some form of negotiation. I mean, even a little bit, even if it wasn't. I did take a job once where they told me this absolutely was capped at X, and there was nothing they could do to go beyond that. But there was a signing bonus, so that was negotiation.
Yeah.
But there's always something,
Yeah.
that you can negotiate if you want the job. So I think it can be a good part of the conversation if it's treated honestly, but it's abused on both sides. Candidates that refuse to tell you what they want to make, and we're not allowed to ask, and employers that are basically complying maliciously by posting some number that's kind of not really very helpful.
Right. I've seen that at Lowe's. It's silly.
Yeah, so it's within the law, but that doesn't really say anything.
Yeah. Have you seen, has sourcing changed a lot since 1996 or has it not? Maybe it hasn't. Well, the tools have changed, but the curiosity and the what's needed to do the job.
The curiosity and the grit has always been part of the job. The tools have changed. I think, so what hasn't changed is the fact that sourcing is a specialization and it's at the front end of the funnel or the top of the funnel, at the beginning of the hopper.
Yeah.
It's getting people to be interested in the company, whether you engage with them or not. It is not the full life cycle. It's that first, half, third, 2/3, wherever you hand it off. But it isn't the full thing. Recruiting is the full thing, and it can be specialized on the back end of that, which is You actually interview candidates, bring them on site, negotiate salary, all that stuff. Some recruiters even do onboarding. So that hasn't changed. But what has changed significantly is that it used to be really hard to find people because there wasn't a lot of information. Now it's still really hard to find people because there's too much information.
Interesting.
It's still hard to find people. So, folks will say, oh, sourcing is dead because you can find anybody online. Actually, that's why sourcing is actually more important now than ever, because you can find anybody online.
That makes sense.
The fact of the matter is you really can't find anybody online. You can find most people online, and I can tell you that there are people that I haven't been able to find online, but I can find almost
and some
all
of them are fake now, which wasn't an issue.
That's
before,
another
right?
problem. Yep. But it's not any easier to find people because there's more people. It's actually harder. It's just the difference between finding a needle in a rainforest versus finding a needle in a stack of needles. Two different problems, but the same problem. You still need that needle. You still need that sewing needle. And, in one case, it's hard to find because you can't find any. You can't see them. And in other cases, there's way too many of them, but they're all the wrong kind of needle. They're hypodermics, or they're safety pins, or they're made out of some material that isn't metal or whatever, So you still have that challenge. In addition to that, the other thing that's changed is it's gotten harder to get people to engage. So where we were more investigators than psychologists, now we're both.
Is that because they think you're fake? Or they worry about
It's harder to engage because of noise, because I think probably the best and in fact also worst example would be LinkedIn. It used to be easy to get people to respond on LinkedIn because you were one of the few people that was actually reaching out to them through LinkedIn. Now everybody's reaching out through LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is actually not governing that in any way, shape, or form. So people who are scammers and are committing fraud are actually being given carte blanche to pay for in-mails. And so you can literally be getting an in-mail from a professional ripoff artist that is trying to steal your identity, and LinkedIn charged them for that and made money off of that. So LinkedIn is profiting from crime directly, right? And I'm not mincing any words here. LinkedIn is a criminal organization because they are enabling fraud by allowing fraudsters to pay for accounts to send me in-mail.
But is it just them, or is it also Indeed and other companies?
It's mostly LinkedIn, but sure, there could be others. But think about it this way: if a criminal was allowed to have a bank account, they would probably get busted. But a criminal can have a LinkedIn account and not get busted.
Well, because they can just say, "We didn't know." Can they?
Really? Banks can't.
No, banks can't. But can't LinkedIn?
They shouldn't have the ability to say, "I didn't know."
Yeah.
If you're sending me in-mail and you're pretending to be somebody that you're not, that is fraud. And
but is there a button you can press that's like, I don't know this person?
Work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. You report people and they come back and say, well, we can't do anything about it. The point is that it's gotten so noisy that literally it's crime being committed and people can't do anything about it. So the response to that is adequately ignore. Why would you not? Kind of like what happened with the fax machine. Did you know fax machines still exist?
I did not. Well,
they still do.
No, actually, I did. I've heard of some use cases.
Most people now have e-faxes, which is an literally an email phone number, like a phone number that I have a phone number where you could fax me something, but basically it just goes to my inbox.
I know doctors still use them.
But the reason that it died was because it just got flooded with it was the easiest way to send out junk, right? And so that's the same thing that's going to happen with InMail. Same thing.
Yeah. Is there any tips you would give sourcers to overcome that? To overcome like sending someone an email, or it's just hopeless?
Yeah, 100%. The absolute best thing that you can do with InMail is to write the InMail yourself, to not use AI. Yeah. Anything that has to do with AI is going to start out with, I hope this email finds you well. I hope this message finds you well. I hope you're well. I hope you're doing well. I came across came across. Those two words literally should be banned from LinkedIn. Like anybody who writes those two words should automatically get expelled from LinkedIn immediately and banned for life, because nobody really does that. That's not how I write. That's not how you write.
No.
But AI does. And so that's the problem. Don't write like that. Write like you normally would, an actual message, like you're sending a message to somebody. Hey, I saw your profile. I read your profile. Sure, no problem. But I came across. What did you walk out your front door and accidentally stub your toe on my profile? Did it jump out of nowhere and pounce on you? I mean, how did you come across it? What were you doing that you came across it?
Yeah.
Right? And why my profile? So, that's part of it. The other part of it is don't just use InMail. Also use email. Yeah. Also follow up a second or a third time. Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting thing that I've noticed a lot recently with InMail. People responding to my InMail by declining it and saying something. So they are rejecting my message while also asking me a question.
Interesting. I never hit that decline. I just ignore it.
Well, a lot of people are doing it. And so I literally get they would decline me. This happens. I'm not saying frequently, but it happens. Yeah. And I'm noticing it more and more. So it's accelerating pattern recognition, remember?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like decline, right? Audra Knight has declined your message. And then the message is, hey, Shally, this isn't really for me, but I'm happy to share this with other people. That's really not a decline.
Very polite.
But it's not a decline.
Yeah.
Right? Or decline. And then it says, I would be interested if relocation was involved. That's also not a decline. Like, why are you declining it? I don't know why that's happening. I really have no idea. But I'm starting to see more and more of that. It's some kind of mechanics that has to do with LinkedIn.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if it gets to be more and more.
I think it will. Yeah, I think people are responding to. Here's another really weird thing, and this I've noticed, and actually don't really care about it, but it's important. I just don't care about it. I'm seeing people blocking me because I sent them DMs, and it literally, if I send you a DM and I'm trying to sell you something because I make money for a living, I have a business and I run a business, and I'm using LinkedIn for, business because it's a maybe business networking site. I mean, hello, right? You invited me to your network and you connected me, and I'm sending you a DM saying, hey, would you be interested in my business? And you block me.
Yeah.
Okay. You could have just replied to my DM and said, no, thanks.
Or not connected with you in the first place.
Or not. Yeah. But so I'm noticing this, and I think this might be generational. My daughter, who's 18, is telling me that basically the way people leave employers now is they just stop going to work. Nobody quits anymore. They just go. Ghosting is apparently like a normal.
I've only heard of ghosting when it comes to like recruitment, like not getting back to the recruiter, or the recruiter not getting back to the candidate.
Yeah, they're going to their job. They just stop showing up to work.
Oh, that's so nice.
This is how they do it. So I think it's sort of a generational thing where they're used to this is the Instagram way. You just ghost someone when you don't want them involved.
But don't they care about reference future and like the?
You would think, but I don't think they're thinking about that. And I think someone who invited me to their network and received one DM from me and blocked me is also not thinking about what that's doing. I don't care, because what that tells me is no, thank you. And that's fine, because I need to make money and I need to, I'm running a business. And if your answer is no, whether you block me or DM me no, either way, I get the same message. Yeah. But don't expect to block me and then still stay in my first degree connection. That's the weird part. So they block me.
Yeah.
Right. And then I can't see their profile anymore, but they're still first degree to me.
Oh, I thought if you block someone, they both. I don't know.
Nope. Again, weird. Like, why block me? Why not just say no, thanks? That's what I do.
Yeah.
Even with the worst spammers, I'm sure you got some pretty nasty spam. And by nasty, I mean like spam that you're just like, wow, how does somebody even think this will work? Mm-hmm. Right? Like the worst one, I got 7 messages, one every week from the same person, literally saying, hey,
you missed my last email.
Did you get my email? Have you read my email? This is my last time reaching out to you. I'm not going to reach out to you. Like, they never said anything new. They just sent me some spam that I didn't read. And then 6 messages whining about why I didn't read their spam.
I got that loads.
Right. I get that a lot. And at some point along the way, I will eventually reply if it gets to the point where it annoys
So it's working on you.
I just reply back and I say, hey, you got the wrong person. This isn't for me. Like, I'm doing you the courtesy of telling you that whatever you're selling, I'm not the buyer, right? So at least there's that. But these people are just ghosting. And ghosting that, so it's weird.
That's definitely a generational thing, I think.
It has to be. I can't imagine it would be.
I want to share one fun story. Speaking of DMs, I feel like this was like a sorcerer in me, and you will be proud. But my last company that I worked for, I saw the job description and I was like, oh, I want this job. You're just like, this is the one I want.
Perfect job, perfect match. Right.
Yeah, I thought this is it. So I went on LinkedIn and I looked up every recruiter, found them all, the head of TA, and that's not uncommon. I did all that.
No,
and I was like, I'm not going to message them here because they're too busy. And but I found one of them, we had quite a few connections. So then I went over to Twitter and I pulled up where Twitter was still a thing and really popular. Pulled up all their profiles, and that same one that I had connections with had a big following on Twitter, and so did I. So I tweeted him and was like, I found your next talent marketing analyst, and boom, I got a job. And I was quite proud of myself. That was like early days of DMs and social recruiting, but I got a job through Twitter.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was. Actually, you probably know the person. I feel like you might know Matt Duran. Maybe.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, he's the one I tweeted, and he was impressed that I stalked him so much.
That's happened to me. I've hired people because they went out of their way. Somebody once sent me a book for my Amazon wish list, and I hired them.
Yes,
probably would have hired them had they not done that. Yeah, but they got my attention. So, yeah.
Same as recruiters that are smart with their outreach. Same thing. Yeah. So we've gone over time, but there's still more we can talk about. Do you want to keep going a little bit, or should we let people go on with their Friday?
We could.
Well, I do have one more if you have time.
Yeah, let's do it. We can always make this a part 2. We can always split it.
I'd love to hear, and I'm not sure I actually want to ask this or hear the answer, but your take on employer branding. If it's, marketing fluff and storytelling, or if you see it strategically as part of, the right talent function, and also does it fit with sourcing? How does it fit with sourcing? That I don't have an answer for. I'm just always interested in how sourcing and employer branding kind of worked together or fit together.
It's an incredibly good fit. I think one of the biggest ways that we can improve our response rates as sourcers is telling a good story, but telling it concisely. We don't have the advantage of, great layout and images that are evocative. And, so the storytelling side is very useful for us, but we have to be able to distill it. And where a good employment branding professional could help us is to help us convert the message into something that can be delivered in short bursts of email or text. Emailing for response rates is very different than emailing for brand. If you're emailing for brand, you need to have good, clean layout, HTML, actionable CTAs, call to action, things like that. With trying to get someone to engage, all of that actually ends up going into the wrong inbox or not getting delivered because this is the first time you're reaching out to them. They're not a subscriber. This is cold email. So cold email is very, very different. We need to be able to tell that same story in basically plain text or markup text without a lot of the other stuff. We can't have heavy images. You're penalized for having text to image ratio that exceeds a certain balance. So we really need that help because most of us are not good writers. And even if we're good writers, we still don't necessarily know the story behind the company or what makes people tick. And if you have the EVP, for example, having that, why people work here, or why people who work here like to stay here, or why people, my favorite one is why people who work here tell other people to work here. That's my favorite. Because why people work here, you can kind of figure that out from the marketing on the website, right? I mean, number one company, fastest growing, these are all things that are usually marketing standards, brand marketing standards. But why someone would like it so much here that would tell their cousin about it may not really make it to the website. And I like to use that, in an email. Or why software engineers like to work here versus...
I was going to say, then that's one thing we can do is differentiate that EVP for the different departments. Or
down to the sentence or two that we can put in an email. So number one, that would be a huge assist. If I had a brand marketing person on my team that I could tap for that would be number one I would go to. And then the sequences in number two. Those sequences are important because the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth email is how we build our story. You build your story on a website with a page where the information is there. Yes, you do have links, but you know as well as I do that very few people click those links. And in the funnel, the one they land on is usually where they stay and then leave. Very seldom do they click through to explore other pages. And the more they click through, the less likely they are to read and the more likely they are to leave. The same thing with emails. My second email needs to continue building the story, and third one building the story, because if my second email is, hey, did you get my first email? You're done. So we need help with whatever that EVP was in that first email, continuation of that. Part 2. Hey, I sent you a message a couple of days ago. I'd like to also mention, did you know, or maybe, this isn't common knowledge, but, something like that, because it builds on the previous one. Yeah. What that usually does is it makes the curiosity on the other end such that they may actually go back, and most email nowadays is in a thread. Yeah. They will go back and read the thread, because chances are, in fact, I would say, I can't put a really hard number on this, at least 50%, probably closer to 70% of people that I'm contacting do not get the first email.
Oh, interesting. But they get the second.
They get the second. And so this is a mechanical function of the centralization of the mail servers. Everything used to go directly to the company's mail server. And that's why we used to hire Exchange administrators and mail administrators. All of that is being handled by Microsoft or Google now. Mm-hmm. And it's going to a central processor. So central Microsoft or central Google email sees every message that I'm sending, even if I'm sending it to 100 different companies with 100 different domains. It used to be each one of those domains separately, judge that email. But now Google and Microsoft know that I just sent 100 messages. And so they sequester my message and they don't deliver it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Until I send a second one, because spammers only email you once. They're disposable emails. Yeah. If you email someone a second and a third time, more than likely it isn't spam. So the gates release that second email. The person, they receive the second email, but it's referring the first one. So they go back and try to find the other one. I just put it right there in the message. So they never got the first one. Yeah. The first message they get is the second one. So I put the first one in there.
So you actually hit forward of the first one.
Yes, in a way. I actually write a new second message with the body of the first one as a forward in the bottom.
That's because they never got the first for people that might not be aware of that.
It's huge.
It's different for employer branding though, because people have opted in, but for sourcers,
right? That's my point exactly. Yeah. So my second message with the forward needs to have something that makes them want to go back and read the bottom of that, because they don't have that first one. And if they don't respond to that, my third one needs to build on that a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So you really need to get good at telling the story in chunky chunks. Mm-hmm.
Wait, can we go back to your second email first?
Yeah.
Now, is the subject? Do you keep it as like RE or FW, or do
you can do forward?
I feel like that. Then they're like, wait a minute, what is that?
But they see the one below. I mean, you are enclosing the other one, right? They just never got it. And the reason I discovered this is because after I got frustrated with very little response on the first email, where I used to get much higher response, I actually asked a few people that responded to my second email, what happened to the first one? Like I replied back and be like, hey, I'm glad you responded to my second email, but I'm actually curious. Would you mind helping me out? Can you find my first email? This was the subject. This was the date. Yeah. And they would be like, no, I never got that. And I'm like, can you look in your junk, spam? And like, nope, it never arrived. Like it just disappeared. So that's how I ended up researching that. And I figured it out eventually after digging into it, that they just never got it. It was sequestered, quarantined, undelivered.
Oh, interesting. Yep.
So that's why I include that second one. But I have to build on it because by the time I'm sending the third one, now they definitely ignored my second one. So
when you stop, do you go up to like the 8 and 9 we were talking about from?
I plan to 7.
Yeah.
I don't always execute to 7.
Yeah.
Most
you don't think
often
that's
than
too
not,
much if they've ignored that many already?
No, because I'm adding to the story. And so there's a different sales pitch, a different pitch in each message, a little bit, right? It builds on it. I do get people that reply after the 5th or 6th one sometimes with, I'm so sorry I didn't reply to the other ones. I was on vacation. So that happens, but it's not anger. It's just, oh yeah, I'm sorry I didn't respond earlier. But it doesn't really 7 is maybe 10% or less of my campaigns end up on 7.
Yeah.
I don't usually get to that point, but it's hard to program something and then add the 7th one later. So I program it in and just, it stops before I get there.
Yeah. So you use some sort of automation tool so you don't have to.
Yeah, most sequencing systems will stop the next one if they replied.
Yeah. So you set it all up with the story, and then you just let it go, and then
they tell the story over 7.
If they respond, it stops.
As soon as they respond, they don't get the next one.
Yeah.
Because now I'm either they said no, or I'm on the phone with them, or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. Do most resourcers have these type of tools now, or a lot of them just manually?
Or
maybe it depends on the company.
It's a CRM kind of function.
Yeah.
LinkedIn doesn't let you do it just 2.
Yeah.
So if you're using LinkedIn, then you can't do it. It's usually something that's built into the CRM. Right. So fewer people than you would think actually have that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you ever incorporate video, or no, because of the reasons you talked about where it just wouldn't get?
I do incorporate video, and when I did, it was very successful at eliminating people, which increased the quality and reduced apply rates in a good way. So fewer people applied, more of the people who applied made it through interview.
Yep.
But the videos were a thumbnail with a link. So they would click on it and go to the video and watch it. And what it usually did was convince someone that this is really not a good fit. Which
you're saying is okay.
Which is, that's quite all right with me. Yeah.
Yeah. Did a lot of people click on the thumbnail? Because when are they ever at the point where you can put a video that just plays in an email? Is that ever going to exist?
I don't know if that exists or not. I think on an iPhone, you would have to push play.
Right. I don't think there's anything now or any tools.
I don't know if you can autoplay on an iPhone. It might be possible elsewhere, but yeah, it's just such a big attachment. It would be a lot of data.
Yeah,
even by today's standards, while you might think 3 megs is not a lot, it's still a lot to send through a phone. Yeah, which is kind of where it would break.
Have you seen the emails where it's a GIF of the video?
Yep.
And it still you have to click through.
You still tap it. Yep, exactly.
But I feel like that's more exciting to click on.
That would be cool. Yeah,
an image.
That would be cool. If the so on the receiving end, it has to allow images, which, as you know, that is not always the case.
Right? Is that a bad idea for that reason? That it might
because you'll see a little box, like a little question mark box. Yeah, and that's a setting thing. Sometimes phones don't download the full content. I think partly because of bandwidth, it's configured that way from the beginning. You can turn it off so that you see the video or the full image, but to conserve bandwidth, they don't. Now with this next generation of Wi-Fi that's coming up, people are abandoning home internet connections and just using cell phone towers.
Really, I didn't know.
So yeah, because the bandwidth is to the point now where you may not even need a wire to your home,
even if you work remotely.
It's getting there, yeah. Not everywhere, but it's improving to the point where more and more people are using, like T-Mobile, for example, is wireless.
Yeah, maybe I can understand that because I live in the middle of nowhere. You can't even see people for miles. Right. Yeah. So I can't relate.
That could be satellite, but I don't know exactly how that works. Yeah, it would be a matter of bandwidth restriction until bandwidth is no longer an issue, right? If everybody has high-speed internet, then it won't matter. And the same thing kind of happened with MMS, the image side of texting. It used to be texting was expensive. You had to pay for each one. So sending pictures cost a lot of money via text. But now MMS goes through internet. And so you can do that. It doesn't really cost you anything, at least in the US. I think in other countries, there's still a cost. But here, if I send you an iMessage with video, it's no cost to you.
Yeah.
That would probably be the conversion factor would be when it's okay to send video because it doesn't make that person have to pay, then it'll probably be more standardized than it is now.
Yeah.
So I think the answer to your question is, I think employer branding is extremely complementary and can be a huge assistance if it's connected to kind of the little psychology behind the itty bitty messages and things like that. Where it doesn't work is when employer branding dictates that you must have this fancy HTML, and now all of a sudden your emails don't get delivered. Or there was a company that I was working with that was very sensitive to brand, and they restricted our email sequences to only 3. So I couldn't send a 4th message. by company policy. And I was like, you're just leaving all this stuff on the table. Now, I told you a lot of times I stop at 3, but 3 to 4, the fourth message would have been really good to send. But they said no by company policy.
Interesting.
So that does kind of handicap us in a way.
Yeah. So if you were head of TA and you had a company, you had a team, would you hire a sourcer or an employer brand person first? And I'm sure that depends on so many factors.
First,
yeah.
If I'm building
your team,
if I'm building a team from scratch, and I had to choose between one and the other.
And I assume you'd start with a recruiter or a couple of recruiters for sure.
Well, I'm assuming the choice is either branding or sourcing. The rest is already established, or
yes.
If I didn't have a good relationship or there wasn't an open relationship with marketing, and this is specifically because marketing is largely ignorant of talent. So if the marketing team doesn't really understand talent recruiting, then I would hire an employment branding person to be the liaison with marketing and translate for us first, because that's much more fundamental and important. Sourcing can't even occur without that. But if the marketing team is, plays nice and will kind of translate for us, or I know it's not their specialty, but if they'll sort of act as our pseudo employer branding person, or at least give us the elements for us to create the stuff and then let us approve it through and we send it to you for approval, then I would do sourcer. So it just really kind of depends on whether or not we actually have that relationship.
Yeah. What about if you throw in TA operations person? Do you think that's later in the game?
Operations, usually it comes after HRIS, which you probably already had.
Yeah, that's true. You might already have it there.
You should already have. Yeah. If not, then operations would probably come before sourcing.
Is there any role that teams have that you think they just don't need?
I don't know. The entire role?
Yeah. Sounds like there's a place for everyone, depending on your.
Yeah, I really like having recruitment coordinators for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's let's just have them do the scheduling, which you can use a lot of tools to schedule. So it's really not the most value add. I like the role.
Those tools work well though, because
for the most part.
What about like a hiring manager then cancels at the last minute? The tools.
That's the exception. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's when you need a TA coordinator to step in.
Exactly.
Right?
Or when you have panel interviews with rotating panels where pick 2 of 7.
Yeah.
It gets a little dicey, or international time zones, or there's certainly exceptions. What I'm saying is that the scheduling can assist the recruiting coordinator can still use automated scheduling and be the one that manages it, right? It's not their main. I don't think it's their main value add. It's the other part of it. It's the ambassadorship of the candidate, right? It's the concierge service of the candidate. It's helping them with questions that they can answer, with connecting the right people, with making sure things don't drop off. It's organizing, prioritizing, planning.
Couldn't the recruiter do that, or they just don't have time?
The recruiters can do that, but we have moved into a system where recruiters are expected to have a lot more face time with hiring managers. And oftentimes hiring managers have coordinators for their teams. So the recruiter may actually leverage the coordinator that is part of the hiring manager's team. And so that, becomes, instead of having a recruiting coordinator, they have a XYZ team coordinator that gets involved with scheduling the interviews. So the role shifted from here to there, but still the recruiter does it. So it's more important for the recruiter to have an advisory relationship with the hiring manager and the candidate than a organization and planning relationship.
Yeah. And we didn't even get into that, the whole relationship with the hiring manager and the recruiter and becoming the advisor. That might have to be a whole nother show.
That might have to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think we've evolved a lot in that space for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. The expectations that hiring managers have of recruiters have grown and become, that's deepened. There seems to still be a push to try to have the self-service model where hiring managers are self-service. But I don't know if that's realistic because there's so much that you would have to learn. We have all these regulating bodies that oversee and have the ability to impact recruiting beyond EEOC. So that's a lot. And so you'd have to have somebody that's well educated in those areas just to be within compliance. I think it's a little bit too much to ask a hiring manager to learn how to be a recruiter, learn how to use an ATS, and know.
And I feel like they don't want to do that.
Yeah. So I think the value is there for the recruiter to be the specialized person that does that.
Yeah. But also, like, I think they're more respected and not just like, go fill those roles and give me.
Exactly. In a high volume setting, yes, I think the hiring manager could be a lot more self-service because the high volume is there for the hiring manager to, screen through applicants, and then it ends up with an HR person that is well-versed in that. But I wouldn't necessarily say that we should transfer all of that responsibility. I would like to keep some of that oversight at least. So more like an operational recruiter where they might be orchestrating AI agents and doing, multiple systems and things like that. And that's also part of the role versus deferring back to having them do scheduling. It can be, the other thing is, if you have multiple hiring managers, and I've noticed that we've continued to add not just more requisitions to a recruiter's desk, but also more hiring managers, as in more variety.
Yeah.
So now you have like all kinds of different, time zones, and I think the complexity by asking
personalities
more or less,
sometimes big ones.
It gets to be, I think, a little bit too complex. So you really need coordination as a skill.
So they can focus on the relationship.
They can focus on the strategy and the relationship with the advisory, and let the planning and coordination. Imagine if there's travel involved, and it can get pretty complex.
Yeah. So keep the coordinator.
I would
keep them all.
I like the ability to have that. If it's not possible, then the hiring manager might have a coordinator.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of where you end up with that give or take. I wouldn't eliminate that as a role. I would centralize it and give them tools like calendaring tools to help them do their job. And the ATS should have other tools as well. Things like, for example, requisition approval processes and offer letter generation and things like that help expedite things, so you don't have to have a lot of manual editing. But the orchestration of it is the recruiter.
Okay, this is actually the last question, but do you think ATSs are ever going to get a good reputation?
No, absolutely not. They shouldn't.
No.
They can't.
They shouldn't.
No,
okay.
Because we forget that it is not, it's a bad name, right? The name of the applicant tracking system is actually it's a misnomer. It doesn't really do what most other software does, what it says it's supposed to do in the name of it, right? Like word processing processes words for documents, a spreadsheet, and it does number crunching. An applicant tracking system doesn't do what it says it does. It doesn't track applicants. It actually tracks requisitions. The life cycle of an ATS is open rec, close rec, not add candidate, close candidate, or remove, So it's really not tracking the right thing. It's in the wrong side. It's really a risk mitigator. It's a compliance thing, and that's kind of why they exist. I remember doing it in pencil and paper. I remember having to keep an applicant flow log with pencil and paper, where it was literally a table on a clipboard, and I had to add the name of the candidate, the job that they were interviewing for, and the disposition why they weren't selected, because that's mandated by law. And it just got really easy when the ATS automatically did that. We forget that that's really the reason ATSs got created, is so that we can track applicants. The applicant flow log. That's what it was supposed to be. But it quickly became project management.
Nope, we're back.
You flipped over. Yeah, it quickly became project management. It became, managing the process of the requisition very quickly. And so it just lost that applicant flow log tracking, that it came from. That's where it originally came.
You just reminded me. I remember applying for a job, and I'm showing how old I am, that it required my social security number to apply.
On paper. To handwrite it.
No, in the ATS.
Oh yeah, right.
I had to like put. I couldn't. That is so
to apply. Like, yeah, not
just
anymore.
To apply.
Now you have to do that later on.
Yeah.
But not to apply. Not at the very. Not when you're presenting your resume.
Yeah. So they are moving forward, but they just have such a bad reputation of the whole dusty old ATS or the black hole, and maybe that's just how it is. And they're all starting to say that they're good at marketing. They're also CRMs, but it's terrible.
But again, they're not relationship management. They're not managing a relationship. Looks like you're dropping in and out.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe that's a sign that my son's gonna be off the bus anyway soon.
Oh, there you go. All right.
This was,
we'll continue this. I'm sure we can make this into a part 2.
Yeah, I actually learned so much. Like, this was really interesting, especially not being, being an employer branding and not being on that side. I learned loads. That was so fun chatting with you and learning a bit about your history and the evolution of recruitment.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this was fun. Yeah, a lot of good questions.
Awesome. All right, everyone, have a happy Friday.
That's right. Happy Friday. We'll see you back here at Shally's Alley.